Thanks so much for coming. You're all very welcome here today. This is part of a series of things we're trying to do to support you as organisations going forward. And we were delighted when we were approached by Niall in the Department of Social Protection to present on some of the various supports that they offer in the department. We are going to record today, and we're also going to be able to share the presentation and the links afterwards. So no need to take notes. We're going to share everything afterwards. But for now, thanks so much, Niall, and I'm delighted to hand over to you.
That's perfect. Thanks very much, Irma, and thanks, Eileen, as well. Good morning, everyone. My name is Niall Lane, and I am with the Department of Social Protection, and specifically, I'm with the Employer Relations Division. And I suppose really kind of what I'm here to talk about is all the different sort of supports and schemes that we have that support employers. And really, it's going to be a kind of quite a broad strokes presentation that I'm happy to kind of delve into a little bit more kind of after the presentation. If anything kind of strikes you as kind of particularly interesting or maybe particularly relevant to your organization. So I might just start sharing my screen now. Okay, so I think I'm sharing. I don't know if I can get a thumbs up. Oh, yeah, I think perfect. Thanks, Eileen. Great. Okay, so just a kind of a quick kind of overview of what employer relations actually is. So it's part of what's called the employment kind of public employment service, which a lot of people might know more so because of, say, job seekers. That's something that my kind of area does engage with. So a lot of my colleagues would engage directly with job seekers to try and fill vacancies. I suppose my division is the other side of that coin, where we're working with employers and organizations to help them fill their vacancies. And there are about 50 employee relations officers based around the country. And all of these employee relations officers sort of deal directly within their local areas, their local regions. For me, I'm in the central team, so I can typically kind of engage sort of more nationally. So that's why I kind of reached out to Irma with the Performing Arts Forum, because it is kind of a national forum. So that's why I'm here kind of speaking to you today. So in terms of the supports and services that we provide, I've kind of bundle them into kind of 5 headings. So we kind of help with recruitment and job matching, work placements, financial subsidies, disability supports, and we also have a charter as well. And so I'll kind of go through these one by one now. Okay, so just in terms of recruitment, this is something that we can support employers and organizations with, and that typically sort of takes the form of, say, job fairs, recruitment events. These can be online or in person, and actually we're kind of running kind of a couple of events kind of this week, last week, and actually this event is part of this series of kind of recruitment and information events that we're running at the moment. So it's a free service, and it basically just allows for employers to kind of get together in one forum, either online or in person, to meet directly with job seekers. So we kind of, as a department, we invite the job seekers, we invite the employers. We also have support organizations as well, just for job seekers looking to upskill. It's a pretty kind of casual sort of event, just to kind of keep people at ease. And yeah, it kind of facilitates face-to-face interaction with job seekers and employers. And a lot of the times, if there are vacancies available, people will be leaving these events with interviews in hand, sometimes even jobs. So they're really good events. So that's a picture of one from earlier last year, kind of a larger event in Cork. Again, it's you've probably seen some of these events before, just kind of stands around the room, and again, just kind of quite calm. We also have our own jobs listing platform. So if you have a role and you're looking to get the word out there, Jobs Ireland is another kind of way for you to do that. So it's similar to other jobs listing platforms out there. It's available kind of 24/7. It's free to use, and if a job is put up on this, we can promote it then on our social media as well, and we can also kind of target directly to job seekers too, which I'll get into a little bit more in a second. Just on the back of that, so Jobs Ireland, which is a national jobs listing platform, there's also EURES, which is the European Employment Service. And there's a couple of different aspects to EURES, but one of them is, I guess, like kind of a Europe-wide jobs listing platform. So it kind of promotes jobs that are listed on Jobs Ireland to a wider audience. And by wider, I mean kind of Europe-wide. Euros also supports in helping kind of finance trips for interviews and also moving. So if someone is being hired from somewhere else in Europe, there's a good chance they might be able to use this Euros grants to help them move their life from wherever it is they are to Ireland. So I think I just mentioned job matching as one of the things that we do. Something that I always want to stress is that, as the department, we have access to, I suppose, the live register, which is a list of everyone who is looking for a job. And I always try to kind of stress the point that this is a constantly changing list. Like I'm sure most of you are aware that this is not a list of 150,000 people who never have a job before, or never will have a job. Most of these people will be in and out of that list in a matter of weeks. It's a constantly changing list with a diverse skill set, and we have access to that. So there's it's not possible necessarily to say, oh, there's this particular skill set is in that live register or that one isn't. It constantly changes, but it is one of the largest lists of people actively looking for work, and we are able to kind of target them directly through kind of emails. So it's really useful if, say, an employer has a role that they're trying to fill, and maybe it's a role in a particular part of the country and has a particular skill set. If that employer gets on touch with us, we're able to promote that within that region, and we can maybe kind of specify that it requires certain skills as well. So it's a really great way of getting a vacancy into the inbox of people who may be kind of qualified and interested in that role. I should also say that, so the employment personal advisors, they are kind of essentially my counterparts. They're the ones who deal directly with job seekers. They can also advertise and promote roles to their client base as well, face to face. So kind of all part of the same job matching service. Okay, so work placement. Some of you might be familiar with the Work Placement Experience Program. Probably more of you might be familiar with the predecessor, which was JobBridge. I probably shouldn't mention Job. I feel like there's a lot of controversy around JobBridge, and Work Placement Experience Program was trying to sort of fix all the kind of the issues that JobBridge had, and it essentially is a 6-month work placement provided by the company. So the employer is the host and paid for by the department. So whoever is on a placement is paid their kind of their welfare payment, whatever payment they're on, and they get a top up as well. And there is mentoring built into this program, and also training as well, accredited training. So there has to be 60 hours of training associated with work placement, 20 of which needs to be accredited. So there's different components to make the work placement experience program kind of quite a fulfilling program for participants. But it's also very beneficial to the host employers as well. So it is an opportunity to engage new talent. It is kind of actually a great way of building capacity within an organization. If there are certain kind of tasks or projects that need kind of additional work. For staff development, this is something that has been fed back to us by employers that use it. They find it very useful for developing their own staff, particularly junior managers or people who are aspiring junior managers, because it gives people the opportunity to mentor and supervise the participant. So there's no financial cost to the employer, so the participant is paid their welfare payment as well as a top up by the department. So there's no cost to the employer with the work placement experience program. Okay, so next is the financial subsidies that we have. So really the kind of the big one is essentially is called Jobs Plus. and this is a payroll subsidy, and it's worth between 7,500 to 10,000 euro over an 18-month period. And it's essentially an incentive for an employer to take someone who has been unemployed for a certain period of time. So you can see kind of in the bottom box there, it kind of gives you kind of a rough overview of the payment and what age or period of unemployment that corresponds to. But it's a payment made directly to the employer over 18 months, and the work must be a sort of full-time role, as in 30 hours or more, and for 4 out of 7 days a week. Okay, and there's a link there. Again, so these slides will be shared, and the links are all kind of accessible. So feel free to kind of explore more after this presentation. But of course, welcome to take questions afterwards as well. Okay, next we have disability supports. So this first one, it's quite similar to like a financial subsidy, but it's called the wage subsidy scheme. And it is sort of a financial incentive for a non-public sector employer to employ people with a disability. And the work has to be a minimum of 15 hours, and it's paid up to a maximum of 39 hours. So there's a few kind of key differences between this and, say, the Jobs Plus. Wage subsidy scheme doesn't have a sell-by date. It doesn't end. So Jobs Plus, it's over 18 months, whereas the wage subsidy scheme, it continues. I would say it could continue indefinitely. There are periodic annual checks to make sure that circumstances haven't changed, but it can continue for the duration of a person's employment. And the rate starts at €6.30 per hour. So that's how much the department will pay an employer who takes someone on who is eligible and accesses the wage subsidy scheme. And there's also additional funding where 3 or more employees are engaged on the scheme within the same employer. So that additional funding can initially goes up by 10% up to 50%. So I think the rate then increases to over €9 per hour. Yeah, and again, there's more information on the kind of embedded link there. Okay, so the next one is Work and Access, and this is probably one of the newer grants that we have. It is a replacement of what used to be called the Reasonable Accommodation Fund and the Disability Awareness Support Scheme, which some of you might be more familiar with. So there's a lot of kind of crossover with these schemes, with these supports, but there are kind of a couple of key kind of differences as well. So this is just a kind of a general overview of these grants. So there's 7 in total. And they all kind of address different needs, and they're all together. The goal is to break down barriers in the workplace for people with disabilities. So what I might do is I'll kind of go through each of them individually. So the first one here is we got the Workplace Needs Assessment. And to me, this is a really good grant because it's very helpful for an employer and also an employee to better understand what they're actually entitled to in the workplace and what they can access. So people with disabilities are really underrepresented in the workplace, and a lot of people maybe struggle to kind of get into work and might not actually have much experience in the workplace, and they're not too sure what they're entitled to. And likewise, employers might not necessarily know what's out there themselves and might not know how to best support an employer or an employee. So the workplace needs assessment is really great to get a professional assessor to come in, look at what the needs of the employee are, look at where their workplace is, and look at what just look at the workplace, and then make an assessment and make recommendations as to how this employee could be better supported within their workplace. The grant is for up to €2,500 to hire a specialist to conduct this assessment. So one of the other grants here for employee support is a communication support. So this is to provide sort of Irish Sign Language interpretation, or kind of lip speaking for people who are deaf or hard of hearing or have other additional communication needs. There's not a monetary amount for this particular grant, but it's kind of divided up into hours. And I suppose it supports people at their different times of their professional life. So you can see there it supports pre-interview support and interview support. So if people are preparing for an interview, this grant can be used to support them, and that can be done multiple times throughout the year. Um, if a person is then successful at getting the job, they can have support with induction, and then there's ongoing support as well. So yeah, this is the only grant that's really kind of broken down into hourly amounts rather than monetary amounts. Okay, so the next one there is in-work support. So this is for a work coach or a specialist or other kind of support worker to come in and assist a person in carrying out their role. And there's up to 12,500 euro a year for this particular support. It does require that an assessment needs to have taken place beforehand. So that can be one that's sort of gotten through the work and access, or if an assessment has taken place before, it doesn't need to have come through work and access, be funded by work and access, but kind of a registered specialist like an occupational therapist or an kind of or kind of a kind of a support professional needs to have made an assessment that recommends that this support is required. And that 12,500 euro, it's renewable. So that's an annual rate. Some of you might be familiar with the work of Employability, which is a partner of the department, and they do a lot of great work in getting kind of people with disabilities into work, but they typically cover the first 12 months, whereas this grant is essentially indefinite. So it can be used kind of every year. The next one is the personal reader, and this is specifically for people who are blind or visually impaired, and it's up to 12,500 euro towards the cost of that personal reader. Okay, so the next one is the work equipment grant, and this is for assistive equipment or technology that's needed for business premises or remote working premises, or both. So I suppose this is one of the key changes that that happened when Work and Access came in. I suppose it recognizes that we are kind of currently in a very different work environment to what we were 10 years ago, or even kind of 5 and a bit years ago, where hybrid working is very much the norm, and so this grant kind of recognizes that. So you can see there it's up to 12,000 euro for the cost of equipment and technology, and that's for the business premises, but it's an additional 12,000 euro for a person's home. So potentially this grant is worth 24,000 euro, and it can go towards all sorts of things. It can go towards desks if you need a specialist desk or a specialist chair. It can go towards assistive technology. It can go towards software. It can go toward maybe noise cancelling headphones. There is quite a range of things this grant can go to. I did hear of a photographer who got sort of maybe lighter weight equipment because they weren't able to kind of carry, because I think of either their condition or the disability, they weren't able to hold the weight of their equipment, so they got lighter equipment. Um, so there is quite a variety of ways in which this grant can be used. So the next one is the Workplace Adaptations Grant. So whereas equipment is very much sort of like physical things, like off-the-shelf items, adaptations are really kind of structural changes to a workplace to better accommodate someone. So the grant is up to 25,000 euro. And yeah, I suppose it can be used for maybe kind of structural changes. We've got it used for lifts if someone is a wheelchair user. It can be used for maybe kind of changing lights if there's someone who has a particular light sensitivity. So again, there's quite a kind of a variance of uses for the adaptation. I suppose one thing to note is, of course, the workplace adaptations are the property of the employer, because there are obviously changes made to a building in most cases. But the equipment is, again, in most cases, the property of the employee. So if it is the case that an employee is eligible for a particular specialized chair, they're able to take that chair with them to their new job if they change roles. Obviously within reason, if say new technology or software has been installed on a company laptop, they don't take the laptop. But within reason, they're able to take the equipment with them because it's kind of procured specifically for them. Okay, so the next one, the final one, is disability, equality, and inclusion training. And there are three kind of training options under this grant, and it's kind of general disability, equality, inclusion training for staff, disability specific. So if it could be if you're looking to kind of upskill your staff in maybe Irish Sign Language or neurodiversity awareness, it sort of can be covered under that. There's also the inclusive recruitment and training for managers. So that can be looking at kind of breaking down unconscious bias, making job specifications more accessible, and sort of taking down kind of maybe written barriers that could be in a kind of a job spec. And there's up to €20,000 a year for this grant. I suppose one of the key differences is it doesn't cover 100%, so there does need to be a little bit of input from the company themselves. It's kind of the grant covers up to 90%, so it's either 80% or 90% of the cost. So it's typically everything would be 80% covered, but if the course is accredited, like QQI accredited or CPD, which is what certification in professional development, or if the trainer themselves is accredited and certified, well then it's a 90% 90% funded. I might just dwell on this just a little bit more because it's probably the easiest grant to apply for, and anyone can apply for it. So a lot of the other grants that I talked about, they all sort of depend on maybe kind of staff, and having a staff member with a disability. They need to sort of be kind of working with you in order to avail of, say, the workplace equipment grant or the workplace adaptation grant. Disability equality and inclusion training, there's no staff requirement. Any employer can avail of it. So I say any employer, any non-public sector employer. So it used to just be that all these grants were for private sector, which are like kind of like for profit companies. But since the grant came in, it has it's been opened up more so to non-profit, charity sector, community and voluntary sector as well. The only sector that it doesn't cover is the public sector. So like Department of Social Protection can't use it. But yeah, again, like I think it's a really good grant. I think there's a bit of paperwork to do with this grant, but it's like it's probably the most popular one that comes across my desk. And you got companies applying for thousands of euro in funding, and it generally can be a quick turnaround for these applications. So it's a really good grant, and people are using a lot more recently, and it's probably the easiest one to apply for because it's really just dependent on the employers themselves. And also there's no better time. I know it was the European Accessibility Act came in this year. There's been a big push by government to sort of to better sort of upskill and accommodate people with disabilities. So like I think a lot of companies have this sort of on their radar, and it's just a really great way to facilitate that. So so a real shameless plug for that grant. In terms of the kind of the application steps for this one, again, because it's a bit newer, I just thought I'd kind of go into some of the application steps for the work and access. The application form is still snail mail, unfortunately. We're still trying to get an online form, but at the moment it's a paper-based form that can be filled out. There are quotes needed for certain amounts. So they vary depending on the grant. So for the likes of equipment, if equipment is over €700, you'll need an additional quote. If it's over 1,500, you'll need 3 quotes in total. For the training grant, though, it's over €2,000. So if you find a training provider under €2,000, you don't need any additional quotes. You just need that quote. Then we have a thing called a supplier setup form. That's basically just to set like the employer up as a supplier so that we can pay them. The next step is then approval, so we can sort of issue a funds approved letter. So that's actually, yeah, that's a key point really, is that this is really across the board, but especially for work and access, it can't be applied for retroactively. So, if you're interested in any of these supports, you need to apply for approval first, and then procure it. And then step 3 is payment. So sometimes a claim form is needed. That's not always the case. It depends on they're more durational. But definitely invoices and receipts are needed, and then payment can take place. And so it's typically a 3-step process. There are other potential steps. There's approval in principle, request for further documentation, a workplace needs assessment maybe need to be carried out. There'll be a final approval or refusal step. There is a right to review, but it's not a statutory payment, so it doesn't go through the same kind of review procedures. Should we say, it doesn't have an appeals process, but you are able to review decisions. And again, multiple quotes may be needed depending on how much is being applied for. Okay, so yeah, and again, it's a paper application. All the others you can do online, but just this one. So the application can be printed out, and you can send it to that address. So actually, I'm just reading this now. Or application can be printed out. You know what? I've just been told this week that we're not allowed to do that anymore. So really apologies. I'm gonna edit that slide, Eileen, just to say that like this was the case where we were able to scan it, but for some reason they're real sticklers for this ink signature. So I'm gonna get rid of that. So it is still snail mail. I will change that. So yeah. So it's something to be printed off. Okay, so last thing here is just the Employment and Youth Engagement Charter. And what it is essentially it's like 6 commitments for employers to engage with in order to kind of to be more sort of proactive in hiring what we call priority groups for support. So these are different groups that are just that bit further from the labor market. So they could be, so it's young people, it would include people with disabilities, people from marginalized backgrounds, and it's a useful tool for employers who maybe just don't know how to navigate some of the sports that we have, because as you can probably see, there's a lot of them. But the charge is a really kind of good way of sort of seeing what a company can achieve through these commitments, and then engaging with an employee relations officer to sort of explore how they can achieve them. So there's, I think, maybe 300 charter signatories at the moment. So it's quite a large community of inclusive employers. So it's a great way to kind of join in with that community and develop diversity in your business. And yeah, there's a link there for the charter for people who are interested in learning a little bit more about ways in which they can kind of support kind of groups that just a bit further away from the labor market. Okay, so in case you wanted more information, in case this presentation wasn't enough of an overload, there are more details in those links there. So we've got gov.ie, Intreo, which is the Irish Public Employment Service, and then specifically we've got Intreo for employers as well. So as I said, Intreo covers kind of everything in terms of vacancies, and then Intreo for employers is really targeted at employers themselves. So in terms of email, I'm always happy to be contacted directly. But people change, but one thing that doesn't change is that email address, employer@welfare.ie. And you're always can be put in touch with the right person if you contact that email address. So in a year from now, I might not be here, but if you know that email address, you'll always be put through to the right person. I know some people are a bit afraid of like generic email addresses, but this is an email address that's staffed around the clock by a full team to make sure that you get put in touch with the right person. But that being said, I'm really happy for you to contact me directly. And my email address is like niall.lane@welfare.ie. And I can send that on to Eileen as well. Maybe you can share that with the slides too. Okay, so a lot of information there, but really happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Niall. I think what we're going to do is we're going to pause the recording for people who missed the presentation this morning, and then we're going to stay on just for any questions. So we'll just pause it now.